Hello, and welcome to the very last bit of Undisciplinary from AAU. I'm Katrine. I'm the director of Kunst Nord, and I promise to try to moderate the most undisciplinary lecturers you will ever find. And I will start by doing a very discreet plug for the performance of Kivanch Tatar's Plastic Biosphere tomorrow evening at 6 at Kunst Nord, which is conveniently placed like 500 meters that way. So actually, I would like to open the floor with a question for everybody, and it's not really a question. It's I would like you to praise working undisciplinarily. I would like everybody to just give a short elevator pitch of why you like to work interdisciplinarily and what you're getting from it. Okay, starting from the right, because this is the West.
Thank you. Thank you. I like this question. Working undisciplinary means to have a lot of patience to the people that are not undisciplinary and need to work with you. Because, for example, scientists are very stubborn and are zero creative and zero dreaming. And we need to dream and to be creative to go forward. And scientists can only go one step, and you need so much patience to say, okay, but I am looking to this. Oh, no, this is too far. And so maybe if scientists can achieve a little more of creativity and of dreaming, our science will be faster.
It's okay, remembering the question, why are we...
Why are you interdisciplinary? Why are you undisciplinary?
Why am I undisciplinary? I don't know the why, but I like being critical, and I like that. I like to question the assumptions that comes within certain regions of knowledge, and I think it's always good to take a different stance and positioning, and to sort of understand and maybe realize those assumptions, which gives you like a kind of like a new perspective. And I always find that approach quite progressive and also beneficial to actually make contributions as well, because new perspectives are always exciting to have.
I like working undisciplinary because my body likes it. And I think mostly when I walk. And then I think with others, and being undisciplinary helps me to be able to listen to many stories and being able to find the space for breathing with those stories. So that's how I would describe it right now.
Being freelancer as an artist is already being antidisciplinary sometimes, and it's like undisciplinary and antidisciplinary can sometimes crash with each other. But and then sometimes I have to say that collaborating with people from different disciplines, we all in one moment realize that we have to go beyond whatever we try to represent, because we don't step outside of our comfort zones or boxes which we try to represent. We can't find new realities together. So for me, it's like just like going and explore these new endeavors, and beyond the typical borders what we put each other in.
Before answering, I have a short premise, a short anecdote, which is I'm from Italy, and once I was trying to explain to a person from another country why we often cross the street even if there's a red pedestrian light. And I was trying to explain it very shortly, saying because we always negotiate the rules. So it's an ongoing negotiation. And I think it might, I mean, I don't know if it's good for crossing the street, of course, probably it's not. But I think that the negotiation process, it's a very important one because it takes into account the two or many parts where the negotiation happens. And if we think about that in our practices, I think it's something very needed. And it brings diversity, which I think it's always enriching the whole discourse. And so undisciplinary means to negotiate the rules, which brings values, probably.
So I will be referring to architecture. So architecture is by definition interdisciplinary. Like today, you cannot talk about architecture and not talk about sustainability. If a building is not sustainable, it's really not architecture. It's not conceived for today. Then if that interdisciplinary is already the basic level, what's the next? How can we challenge the barrier? And that's where we arrive to the undisciplinary. We must provoke, challenge, in order to assure we can prepare ourselves, the future architects, artists, for ever-changing social context. And I think this is essential for all of us to continue to push the limit for our discipline ever further. Even this, if this means provoking something that's not, I don't know, common, takes us out of the comfort zone.
So I'm a cultural researcher, and cultures are very diverse, very complex. And yeah, it's fascinating to do undisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary research. It broadens your own worldview. And yeah.
I kind of confess that I sometimes would like and even long for being within a discipline only and feeling that I actually belong to a community, because this feels reassuring. That said, I never belong to a community in terms of a discipline. And I very much agree with all that have been said by my colleagues. And perhaps I would add that to me, being undisciplined helps me to refine my perhaps listening skills and my empathy. And it's perhaps just about being curious, and being a migrant also has to do a lot with, I think, being undisciplined to some extent, trespassing borders.
Does anyone want to pick up on something anyone else said? So you all seem to agree that there's something to be found in the border regions of the disciplines that make something new and interesting. Something that I noticed that a lot of you shared is the reaction to the continued artificiality of machine learning, this field we are moving into for so much of our working life, AI. Does anybody have an idea what happens with the boundaries between disciplines when we're reacting to data sets that have been put into boxes? Any thoughts, perhaps from the archivist?
It's unfair, but I will ask. It's a huge question, actually. It's really huge in terms that the level of technology that has been recently released, it's really shaking the fundamentals, being, especially because then it's available, it's universally available. And I mean, we have seen change of paradigms in the last decade, probably, which have shaken our certainties quite in a quite substantial way. But this is not about identities. It's not about materiality. It's really about the creation of content that for such a long time we have not trusted, attributed to the machine. I personally think that there's a big problem even in the current so wonderful, apparently, technology, because the principle, which is I mean, it's based on a principle which I'm really questioning, which is the predictive paradigm. So it's still, for me, very far away beyond the results and how universally they can be accepted or questioned. The predictive means a statistical way of thinking, which is very, and I mean, it's unopinionated, and that's the main issue for me. And I mean, there are plenty of issues, of course. I do think that there are excellent way of using those technologies, but there's a big, the biggest question is if we want to delegate to the machine, which is something that the industry is pushing a lot because then they can sell a lot of services in this respect, or if we want to experiment with their possibilities, what we can furtherly do.
So, of course, there's many concerns, and those concerns are legitimate, including this commercial, framework, because it's basically part of digital capitalism, right? If you want to use ChatGPT with your students, there's no option you can use it based on any educational license to start with, right? Because OpenAI, contrary to how it presents itself, it's just a company. It's a for-profit entity, right? So, usually we were offered some kind of educational uses, not in this case. So I cannot make my students more familiar with GPT-4, for example, because it's available only as ChatGPT Plus feature, right? So that's only like a drop in the ocean. But my personal problem with it, and it's a big one, is that just as Alessandro emphasized that it is all predictive and all statistical, I would add that this paradigm of, this paradigm of thinking about intelligence is extremely narrow because it's all about symbols, right? So intelligence is being framed as primarily working on symbols, right? And calculating and predicting and statistical work. So the whole area of intelligence that is basically intelligent response to environmental challenges is being left aside. Right? And we still don't know much about how more than human beings communicate. And we still, we barely started understanding, the other types of intelligence. And now it's like, it seems to be like, again, the main point of interest. So to me, what is being touted as the new kind of revolutionary thing is just a narrow-minded backlash to the 50s.
Okay, Robertina.
Yes, I would just first reply to what Ludovico was already, like what Alessandro was saying before, but for me, what is the question is like how this kind of objectivation of all this data and what is happening is pushing out, it's pushing us to be very subjective, I would say that there is like the truth of opinion is too strong it's a strong statement and all, but there's just like this kind of my truth is the holy truth, or is the presence, or is the only truth which exists, because I just can't navigate otherwise all this other data and all these other knowledges. And this is something which I really see that is shaping and changing. And this is something where I kind of feel very uncomfortable many times, because yes, there is lots of data and it's lots of questions, but then it's also lots of good usage of AI, in the sense of like when you gather the data, understand that in the last 100 years we really did damage in this area much more than before, and so on. So it can help us with some statistics. But then it's come this second question. So, but if I show this to somebody who is sure about their own truth because they are exposed to too much of this information, where would this person be able even to, or we as society will be able to move forward together with it? Or will we just like everybody having their own bubbles, because we are in that, so yeah, the question is big,
Yes.
so data is one thing, then is the usage of that, and it's like, something is, yes. So I will stop here and give word further. I see
Yes, I
that
think
he was like
Kivan has an opinion here.
yes.
I want to bring back the human into the equation, because we are talking about machines here, but as if like in these conversations, there's a lot of invisibilization of who is actually behind these decisions, right? So all these technologies, they are made by people. All data sets, they are gathered by people. Data is made by people. So at every point, there's a human being involved. So maybe a better approach there is, in those choices, what were the pragmatic views of those actors? Why did they take one choice against another? And is it the benefit of the public? Maybe that's sort of like a healthier discussion at this point for the public. So maybe bringing back human into the equation and trying to understand all the actors and the stakeholders and their involvement in the whole process. Another thing that I want to mention is, like, at this point, I think some of these advancements initiated really interesting questions. For example, what is knowledge? Especially, we are passing 8 billion human beings right now. I was chatting with some of my colleagues that are expert in surveys, for example, in academic knowledge. And he mentioned this in the last 10 years or so. In the last 10 years or so, the surveys are increased so much. He's working in the medical area. The surveys are increased so much, the number of surveys, that he said today it's impossible for me to read all the surveys in my area at this moment, because there's so many of them out there. So now I think it's really this interesting point where we are at this interesting point, is that there's so much data that we can't even look at as individual human beings. I cannot look at the whole neural archive. And I'm pretty sure like there's amazing artworks there. I would love to see it, but let's be honest, I will never have that time, right? So maybe maybe this is a really good point to start talking about what is knowledge in this current state of society, and what would be a new way of interacting with knowledge in that state.
Is there a question?
I'm actually quite interested to hear your opinions regarding this paradigm shift, because I'm all for technology, but there is a point where, as a former programmer, I know that right now there are algorithms that do not reply to human input. Programmers don't know how the algorithm makes its decision. So we are in a exclamation point moment regarding technology. Of course, technology is a tool. We use it as a tool. The problem becomes, of course, the moment when technology overruns us. Okay, so we are slaves to our phones, to our laptops, to our instruments, to everything we have in our house. We build 3D houses now. Okay, everything is done with technology. I design houses on technology. But the problem is what's happening. We're in the last 3 decades, we've seen an exponential growth in technology. We are seeing that, we are experiencing, but we haven't calculated the human impact. Do we really can keep up with it? So I'm not talking in our bubble, the academia. I'm talking the society, because academia without the society, what are we for? Is the society able to keep up with the development in technology? And another question is, in this over in our run for new technology, are we not forgetting that we're still human? And I'm actually quite worried about the nostalgia presented everywhere. We have a sense of nostalgia about the past, when things were slower, where things were better, that led to some political movements. See the US, they miss the good old days. Are we not, with this accelerated technology, are we not creating a counter movement in nostalgia to bringing back what happened? In our purchase for utopia, aren't we building a dystopia?
That's a very nice rounding off there.
The fact is that the world is running without rumbo in English, rumbo, without goal, without objectives. The world is running without objectives. It's running as chicken without head, we say it in Spanish. That is running as crazy in the room, but without head. So we need to put head as we can. The other point is that it's true that we are in a very crucial moment, as a lot of times in the history of mankind. For example, 1909, Filippo Marinetti, he decided to take a car and run through the streets as crazy. Was 30 kilometers per hour, so but he think was crazy, and he founded the futurism, no, because this sensation, this fascination of a machine, and he changed the paradigm of the classical beauty to the machine, and began a new movement, the machinism, etc. So we are now in this moment that here is the car, that is artificial intelligence, true, available to everyone now. So everyone can take the car or ride a horse all his life. I choose take the car, but we go without goal. We don't know where this car will take us. What have to using cars? We stay 1, 2, 3 hours in traffic jams. We have contamination as never in the world, but we need the car. We have a lot of problems everywhere because but the car industry is making the evolution of the societies. So it's, as I was telling in the conference, we are full of contradictions, and it's really out to get out of these contradictions. And it's difficult as humans, you say humans, humans make do the evolution of culture, of art, of everything, because the fascination, the personal fascination of specific people. Specific people are fascinated by this, by this, by this, and at the end, the history of art is also the history of the fascination of these artists that was fascinated by this, and they began to work. So now are a lot of people fascinated with artificial intelligence. True, we don't know what will happen, but we can only hope in that humans will be always have a heart and a kind of kindness with other humans sometimes.
Yeah, we can work on that. I mean, we can work on, humans having still heart and being able to sense and feel and connect to others. But well, a permaculturalist in me sort of tells me to ask questions. So for example, this new shiny world of AI fancy gadgets, right? It all operates on the rusty and rundown electric grid in the United States, right? And it runs on Water Crisis California, where actually, access to the water resources is kind of, increasingly a problem, right? So you know what's my point, right? So I think we live in a world that's extremely complex. It's multi-speed, multi-scale, and multi-perspective. And I think one of the biggest shocks of my life recently was actually a visit to San Francisco in January. And, the scenes you see there, like in a city center, the whole downtown. And, San Francisco has never been like an, kind of easy city. I visited twice before, but what has happened to the city between, say, 2019, from before the pandemic, but the pandemic accelerated the processes. So what you have there is actually urban hellscape, right? So we live in the same, it is the same world, the world where you have those fancy gadgets, super efficient AI, and the new perspectives and the spheres, right? And you have the world where, our most, I would say, palpable problems are how to deliver the simple power generators to war-torn countries, or how to cope with the city where you have like thousands of people homeless, right? So whenever I hear those like kind of raving about artificial intelligence, I'm always like, yeah, but so that would be a set of questions that I would ask as well. And this is not unrelated, on the other hand.
Only one point. Artificial intelligence can help in the distribution of this problem. And it's true, and this is why I was also speaking about the everything that we needs to have in the mind, the 17 goals of United Nations that are understanding that ecological problems needs to be solved with social problems. Without is impossible.
To which I would reply, artificial intelligence would have been able to help if it wasn't produced, designed, and conducted within this paradigm of digital capitalism. Because right now, we have all the tools to solve, maybe not solve, but to ameliorate, right, the dire conditions that like most of the humanity lives in. But we do nothing. Why? And that's the answer, because most of those tools are not designed for this kind of work. They're designed for profit. And I think that's something that we increasingly need to take into consideration, how to live in this world and what we can do as, individuals, as communities, as, collaborators. Also in the academia.
That way.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have an answer. I have more questions. One of being, can we afford not to keep up with AI? Because at one point, maybe our way of working, researching, will be not relevant anymore. The other question is, we are still at the first level of development of AI. We'll reach the third level of general AI. And when we are speaking about general AI, can we still speak of different fields of knowledge, or we must unify them in that idea of one general AI?
That's a lot here, I think, to consider. As it is quite understandable. but I would like to start something with Marinetti.
Italian business.
Yeah, no, not the Italian business, but I mean, I think it's something important. We were talking about nostalgia before, and Marinetti is probably one of the farthest person. I mean, Marinetti was absolutely against fighting nostalgia as one of the founding values of futurism. And because nostalgia, I think it's directly connected with having hope for the future. I mean, when do you start to have nostalgia? When do you start to lose your hopes? Thank you. Okay, we agree on that. And I think there's a lot of nostalgia which is arising later. COVID probably has started the process and everything. Okay, where AI comes into the equation, I think that the imaginary, it fills up the imaginary of a very complex machines that would solve a lot of problems. And then who needs a future when machines can do it somehow? And I think this is the main danger. So being deprived of our rights to imagine the future, to hope for a different future. How it is done, I connect with what Anna was saying. It's a very political question. Of course, we have to take into account the technological development. I'm not saying we should go on top of the mountain and meditate for the rest of our life, even if, I would think about it. Anyway, but I think it's still coping with the technology evolution. It's a political question of standing on one side or another to oversimplify. Because another big issue is the level of complexity we have to deal with. I think Robertina was mentioning it. The level of complexity is absolutely overscaled. It's out of control somehow. You were mentioning that there are algorithms which can't be understood, but even if you have a look at the nanometer scale of processors of of what we have in all our pockets, there's no one single engineer at Apple or whatever other company that can certainly say what is going on exactly at any moment there. It's too complex. So on one side, we have the industries building upon complexity. The other, I think, extremely dangerous trend is that this complexity, which we increasingly can't understand, even if we have to cope with, I insist on that. I'm not saying we should exclude ourselves from this, is bringing a kind of dependency in terms that it's pushing since a long time individuality. We have individual devices. We have, when we think about AI, all these wonderful services and such are mostly based on your individual tasks. There's no collective vision. There's no cooperative vision, which I think it's what is lacking here. And there is this oversimplifying position to take. Delegation to the machines, which means, okay, Microsoft, whoever is there, do what I would like to do, or give me a machine that would do a lot of things, or I wouldn't say the cuss words, but Microsoft, you can stay where you are. I would like to have a tool to improve what I would like to do in a better way, even with statistical reason, even with a complexity to deal with, but for my own purposes and in a dialogue with other people. I think this is probably the crucial point. We have, because the over in the media history, there has been a huge push by the technological industry, towards their power, owning the means of symbolic production over the years, pushing individuality. What we should claim for now is the right to cooperate versus the compelling obligation to compete, and to reclaim this. Sorry if I'm already quoting somebody else, to reclaim the means of creative production in order to um, um, follow our own purposes, not the industry ones.
I would like to add to that, but I think one of the changes that machine learning brought in is actually opening that individualization of technology, especially in the DIY communities. So all these technologies that are made by big tech, there are global initiatives in which those technologies are being replicated. And it is working fantastically, actually. It's opened so much opportunities. One of them is, for example, Stability AI. A lot of people know, probably. And it is, I mean, you can just go on their website, look at the dataset that they are using. All dataset is completely open. We can do studies on it, which is amazing, in my opinion. And also, you can look at the GitHub repo. And of course, that's Medium is bought by Microsoft and such, and which is like quite problematic how they use the code there. But you can see who contributed to it. It's across the globe. So I'm like, I want to bring in a little bit of positivity here, that like, I think one of the interesting additions that has been brought within the machine learning communities is that this open access, open source, global initiatives on actually creating knowledge. And I think it's on such a large scale that that hasn't been explored before. So that collaboration, to me, in this like whole chaotic stance by individuals who has no intentions about curiosity and they're just nerding, is, it's, I think it's that's quite astonishing and amazing. Another thing that I noticed, maybe something positive coming out from machine learning communities, is that how there's then also incentive towards looking into the open access knowledge and how we create knowledge. So let's be critical towards academia as well. We have gatekeepers in academia and the academic publishing and academic knowledge as well. And one of the positive things that I've seen in the machine learning communities is that, there are studies being run to understand randomness in selection of academic knowledge at conferences. And these are like statistically looked upon, and it's very interesting to look at. Actually, I can't remember any other source to have that knowledge. And they found every year, I think NeurIPS does this, and ICLC as well. Every year they run these statistics, and 2 years I checked, I think 1 year was 35% and the other year was 40%. When there's like a high effort of minimizing randomness, we still have 35% of random chance in academic publishing, which is, I think, amazing to realize. And these positive aspects are also maybe something to talk about. Like some of these changes, of course, broaden, I see them as good for the society. Yeah.
I think we're rounding off, but I have a question. And that's because I would like a deep history perspective here. So I'm sneaking towards Viola.
Oh.
Are we the new romantics? The way we're viewing machines and machine learning, can you see a relation between how the romantics were viewing their newfound abilities to discover a hidden world, perhaps, or be in awe of a hidden world?
Oh, I would not.
Very leading.
I would not go so far back to the Romantics, but maybe to the Frankfurt School and to that they acknowledge a lot the utopian glimpses, but they also said, of course, that they won't give up critical thinking, and we should keep that in mind, I think. And also look for the utopian glimpses in all this dystopia.
Okay, I will give the microphone to Morten, who has something planned for us.
Unplanned, undisciplinary. And since we are all not tired, not hungry, and not something. Yes. Okay. To the panel? Oh. Oh, yeah.
What's the question? Where is it?
It's actually two questions, and this is for Alessandro, but anyone who feels inclined to answer may answer. The first one is, what constitutes a reliable knowledge system in the post-digital? That's one. And then the second one is, how do you reconcile diversity and your own personal biases and the type of content you choose to publish and to archive?
We only have the one, huh?
Who wants it?
Yes, great questions. Thank you very much. It's a crucial question. It was also emerging somehow before, but you perfectly formalized it. Reliable sources. Of course, it's a kind of relative concept because reliability is relative. There were also fake documents 500 years ago, even before, and I mean, it's not an absolute concept, but the reliability is, in my humble opinion, is very connected when you can track the source of that knowledge. So when it's not just a random thing. Let me just say divert for a second, because I spent 6 hours, 7 hours of my life recently trying to track back a quote that myself, I selected for a book I'm writing, I finished writing, and I was very convinced that the quote was that one. And that was, probably you have similar experiences, was related to a very famous book. I'm not telling you which one and what book. After 7 hours having digital copies of that book, actually, in that book, that quotes have never been. So even reliable sources from a book from the 60s, once it started to circulate on the internet, and I found that quote and that reference, even in academic books, by prestigious people, reliability. So I was very convinced it was there. It was not. I searched the whole text. I scanned everything. It was not there. So it started probably with somebody thinking, oh, it might be there. And then it was resonating all over the networks and then end up in print as well. When you can track it back for real, that is a reliable sources. I was astonished that in years nobody took the effort, because it's quite, it resonates a lot to track the source. So that's the reliability, which is always relative, as we are human beings. There's nothing absolute that stays like that forever, of course. That's to answer the first question. The second question, bias. Of course, there's bias. And I mean, it's also resonating with something that we were discussing before again. Thanks for picking it up again. And there's bias in everybody. How you try to keep that bias as low as possible. There are two parameters usually that you can use. One is the experience that you use. So usually the more experience you have, the more your selection might be significant. The second parameter, which is equally important, is that there should not be one reference. That's why I was talking about the distributed thing in terms of a collective effort. we can't rely on one definitive huge library for all the human knowledge. There's a network of hundreds of thousands of librarians that might pick up the knowledge, each of them with their own little bias. But that's why I'm trying to push a lot this collective and dialoguing as a practice. Because the collective and dialoguing, as much as possible on the same level, brings the knowledge, because the bias then is negotiated, and you can possibly, I mean, maybe I'm just naive in that, but you might possibly reach the best results. I mean, the bias, you can't just delete it, but you can keep it as low as possible when you start to be in dialogue with others, and you start to have a collective as larger as possible, also not universal, because that's too big to manage.
I would add something. I would add that this collective work is the most important, and I would like to really, I guess, express my appreciation to my different communities. And it is especially difficult, I guess, in the academic world to have a community that is built on trust, because at the end of the day, I'm not sure, Alessandro, if you agree with me, but it is all actually built on trust, right? We trust our mentors, we trust, I mean, yes, yes,
Money is built on trust.
everything is built on trust, while currently this trust is constantly undermined. That's why we need to get back to the basics and start talking to people, right? And what I would like to say is that we discuss technology, like we've been discussing it for the last couple of hours, but I think that there's another question to be asked. Do we operate only within this model where technology is being invented and designed in Euro-American center and then like transferred to further down the line, or do we have some other models? Because for years I've been teaching my students about Ushahidi, for example, the crowd mapping tool that was designed in Kenya, and that was related to elections back then, right? So I think there is a number of extremely interesting technologies being developed in, the countries, I mean, so-called global south, which is, another moniker, I mean, kind of like a name to be used, right? But you know what I mean. There's, I think maybe when it comes to technological advancement, we should entirely change our perspectives, right? So maybe it's not like AI that is so fascinating. Maybe it's, the device that helps you to get an access to the internet if you don't have electric power, right? Because that was one of the devices invented in Kenya. So that would be my take on it as well.
No, I only want to introduce a little comment to Alessandro, that is to introduce hope with this comment, because you say you was spending 6-7 hours for this. 15, 20 years ago, I spent 60-70 hours for do the same. My first article was 38 years ago. I spent 6-7 days for this. So the coming internet is the first thing that we say, wow, it's great. I can write an article in some days, not in some months. This helps.
I can't help being reminded of Jean-Francois Lyotard's book of the postmodern condition, where the legitimation of knowledge is followed up by the idea of the paralogic, kind of a practice that is not specified, but I kind of feel that we are trying to narrow it down somehow. We've been trying to narrow it down since I read it first in the 80s. What is the paralogical practices of a knowledge field when you lost the universal framing of legitimation, if you ever had it? Anyway, we have the opportunity now to finish with, I mean, since we are undisciplinary, some interventions by 2 minutes each by 2 groups of students, as I understand it. Is that correct? So please seize the floor and undiscipline us. And thank you to the panel.
Thanks so much, everybody.
4 minutes. We are told.
Yes.
Showing our work? Yes. You're showing your work.
This is
We can introduce what we're doing. Yeah.
if you want to speak. Or
Come on, go
just
for
going
it.
out of line.
Can I just start? Because I want to continue from what they said.
Great.
That's best when you're.
We don't need to.
Maybe state first who you are. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello. My name is Mark.
Hi, my name is Elisa.
My name is Amir.
Hello, Rita.
Okay, so the ending panel was a really interesting discussion about, what do we do in this context of digital technology and like the apocalypse. So the project was actually from that sort of premise, like what kind of art making can we do in a time of crisis. So our project is called Post Fire, which started yesterday as a performance or like a public engagement. And I'd like for Rita to maybe talk about her work.
Oh, okay. So yeah, yesterday we organized this holiday. It was a moment where we were celebrating what it means to be together and gather around like some sort of bonfire together and celebrate such a moment. Alisa can speak about it as well. But yeah, the point was not that it is not that to make it apocalyptic and like burn. So we have like fire flames over the recording of yesterday's holiday. It wasn't to be so apocalyptic, but to accept that there's no like finitude to technologies and cultures, and that we're celebrating within the cyclical processes of today and forever. Yeah, and basically we were like try to make the point that the fire is also some kind of a media, and we're talking about fire in the context of media and in the context of a post-fire, like what comes in ashes. That was one of the questions that we raised, basically, and that was also the reason why we tried not to burn anything physically, but just do it digitally, just to show how the fire also can create like atopic moments and atopic places that comes after the fire. Yeah, and this is just a physical form of what was happening yesterday. Yeah. Okay, this is it. Thank you.
was there one more, or have you? Yeah? No? Maybe? No?
Or not?
I'm confused. Are you coming or? Yes, yes, yes. Good. Very good. You. You want to connect it? No, no.
I think so.
You think so? Okay.
If it is possible.
Mm-hmm. You want to connect it? Yes. Yeah. But it's a little shaky. But it has no.
What are you doing?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay, but
But can you talk about it without
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Okay. So I think that's better. Here you go.
Okay.
Yes, please state who you are.
My name is Muhumara Dimuruti. Angie.
My name is Anggia Nariska. So we are from the other futures of the media arts and cultures exhibitions, and
Yep. We would like to present about our project, which is on the first floor. The title is Other Futures with the slogan, Are We on the Same Boat? So I'm going to read the curatorial statement to give context. Other Futures is a speculative project about the future of technology from diverse perspectives. It entails a short film compressed of 4 video essays that convey a compelling narrative through animation, AI-generated graphics, and motion pictures. The idiomatic expression, "Are we on the same boat?" raises questions about realities and interests of historically marginalized groups regarding the future and application of technology. The boat and navigation have been employed as metaphorical representations that reclaim the function of technology to serve as a post-colonial agent. Historically, the boat was used for exploration to facilitate trade and transportation, while on the other hand, it was used for detrimental purposes such as warfare and the slave trade. It is a potent symbol that embodies the complex relationship between technology and human progress. By redefining the boat and navigation as symbols for progress and liberation, the project seeks to stimulate dialogue and creativity that reimagines technology beyond a centralized view.
Since we are projecting like 4 different videos, so I think I'm gonna to try to like to show one of animations that I made, which is representing like the idea of the other futures, like like happening in my country. So the idea is about personal urge, which like it's happening in actually in Obi Island, and you can see that there is like red waters or red rivers. Obi Island is one of great suppliers which provide like of nickels, and also we know that nickel is significantly needed to like to build batteries for BEV, like batteries based electric vehicles. And we know that it's been a like like a questions for me, because like when I got in European countries, I see like very greener lifestyles, but in my country it's like a like opposite conditions. So here I'm gonna show you directly to the animations. Huh? There. Do you think the sound is working? Not really, but I think the audio is playing.
Where is it?
So this project is put together by 4 people. One from Southern Africa, that's me, and then Angie from
Indonesia,
Southeast Asia, and then there's Central Asia, and
not Central,
sorry,
East Asia from China.
yeah, from China, yes, and then there's South America.
Mhm.
So Angie will be playing hers from Asia.
There's no audio. Okay.
That's weird.
That's weird.
Should work, yeah?
Okay, so maybe
Just
it's
a minute.
fine.
Just a minute.
Okay.
Is it? Can you hear it? No?
Nah.
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 Oh, shit.
Oops, Max.
Nah. Oh no.
Oh no. No. What is happening? Okay, so
That
so
was-
sorry.
sorry.
Sorry. Did someone call him? Or- Okay, so
Maybe just wrap it up telling about
yeah, I think technical error is yeah, but okay, so the concept is that why I was making like a red triangles, because red is representing like the red rivers, from the sedimentations from the high waste, from the nickels, and also the triangles. Why like like the animations like upside down, because to the down it depicts like the marginalized people are invisible, since that like also the capitalism, in my country. So, and also if you showed the animations why like two human heads like catching the plankton, and also like upside down of the mangroves, and also abandoned boat, since like I create one of the character designs for the one of the species of the fish, which is a yellow fin fish. It is one of the great, like a breeding influence through the Pacific oceans, which is, like affecting like how. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I really need
So
your
it's
idea.
the regime of digital
No, no, no.
technologies.
Not this one.
Oh.
Okay. The okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I was using yes. Okay. Sure.
Yes.
Yes, do you have my video in here?
Yes. Maybe you can resend it. Why? I have downloaded it. Just light. Like how diamond and political is.
Mac.
Mac?
Once again. It falls out. This time it wasn't me.
This is not part of the undisciplined.
Very undisciplined.
Also, don't go anywhere, okay?
But it's fine. No audios. Okay, so I was using one of my friend's voice, which is like she can like speak French or also German, and why I was using like two languages from European, which means like you will see that in Europe, like everything is clean and clear and green, and also you can see like like someone is charging, and one of a like a fished, and also like like a driving the electric car here. And I would just want to like to create like mutated fish, since like I want to like human feels like how like like the damage that they can give to the species, especially for the fish and ecosystems and their habitat as well, like a mangrove. You're seeing like a two abandoned local boats. I mean, Obi is located in a Sulawesi. Like people very like reliance to the like fishing and something, but they're not gonna do that again, since like the like a river is turning to red and the fish is gone. Okay. And okay, and then the next scene is that like if you see like very like iconic our presidents using like the hat, something like that, because they are only focusing to taking the benefits from the nickel industry, but it is not going on. They neglect like how the these industrials really like deteriorate the ecosystems as well. And that's it. And also like I was using the Chinese dialect, because like almost like 99% of the smelters is manufactures how like a raw nickels is refined to the first class, and the only Chinese technology can use it. So that's why like it's kind of deal. Okay, you can something like that. It's very political.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you
Maybe
very much.
You can say that you can go out and see the work upstairs as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure,
you
of course.
should. Great sound.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Anka, it is your microphone.
Okay, it's my microphone. Thank you so much, everybody, for your patience, for being undisciplined, for coming here. It's really, again, an honor to have all of you, Silvia, Alberto, Kivanch, Rezvan and Nelly, Viola. I'm missing somebody. Joanna. Yes. Yes, so thank you, everyone. And also thank you to Diana and to Morten, who have been really and are continuing to work in the background to make everything run smoothly. And with that, we're going to dinner still at 7 at Structure. For the hotel people, we'll meet at 6:45 if you want to walk together. And yes, that's it.
Thank you.